3.9 magnitude earthquake shakes sections of Kingston and St. Andrew. Another earthquake has impacted sections of the island, with tremors felt in the corporate area on Monday morning. According to the earthquake unit of the University of the West Indies, MONA, the event occurred at around 6:50 a.m., approximately 7 kilometers north of Bull Bay, St. Andrew. The earthquake had a magnitude of 3.9 and a focal depth of 20 kilometers. Reports indicate that the quake was felt in parts of Kingston and St. Andrew, though no damage or injuries have been reported at this time. The earthquake unit continues to monitor seismic activity across the region. Man charged in connection with Salt Spring murder. A 30-year-old man has been charged with murder in relation to a fatal stabbing incident along the Salt Spring Main Road in St. James last year. Adam Carey, otherwise called Chin Chin, of Rosemount, St. James, is accused of murdering 46-year-old Christopher Clark, otherwise called Ali, a laborer of Birch Hill in Salt Spring. According to reports from the Mount Salem police, the incident occurred around 8:55 a.m. when Carey allegedly stabbed Clark along the main road. Following the attack, Clark reportedly attempted to drive himself to the hospital but lost consciousness behind the wheel. The motor vehicle subsequently hit an embankment and overturned. Police were summoned to the scene, and Clark was rushed to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. After months of investigation, Carey was apprehended on Thursday, March 5, 2026, at an airport while attempting to board a flight to Panama. He was handed over to the police, after which he gave a caution statement and was subsequently charged following an interview. Meanwhile, a court date for him is currently being finalized. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade has furnished details regarding the failure of the Jamaican and Cuban governments to negotiate a new agreement for the continuation of the Cuban medical program. The ministry issued a statement over the weekend, which was issued in response to criticisms that under the Holder's administration, Jamaica has essentially abandoned the Cuban people.
The Foreign Ministry says the Cuban medical program was terminated after failed efforts to restructure it and bring it in line with Jamaican law and international labor conventions. It says the decision followed months of engagement with the Cuban government in an attempt to change the payment structure for Cuban medical personnel. The Jamaican government was also insisting that the Cuban health workers had control of their travel documents. This after concerns were raised that some Cuban workers on the island were not initially in possession of their passports. The Foreign Ministry says once the issue was brought to its attention, steps were taken with immigration authorities and Cuban officials to ensure the workers were allowed to hold their own travel documents. In echoing Friday's disclosure from the health minister, the Foreign Ministry says the more significant issue was how the Cuban workers in Jamaica were paid. According to the Kamina Johnson-Smith-led ministry, while salaries for Cuban medical personnel were calculated at the same level as their Jamaican counterparts, the payments were made by Jamaica to Cuban authorities in US dollars. Overtime payments were the only earnings paid directly to the workers. The ministry says there was no contractual provision specifying what portion of those payments went to the workers themselves. This raised concerns on the Jamaican labor and tax laws, as well as international labor conventions. The Holness administration reportedly attempted to address the matter through diplomatic engagement. Formal discussions began in July last year with the aim of restructuring the arrangement so that Cuban medical personnel would be paid directly and retain control of their travel documents. Following cabinet deliberations, the government submitted a formal proposal in October and sent follow-up communications in December. The Holness administration also made direct inquiries to both former and current Cuban ambassadors and held informal discussions at the ministerial level. But despite those efforts, there was reportedly no substantive response from Havana. At the same time, Jamaica said it became aware that other Caribbean countries had arrangements in place under which Cuban medical personnel were paid directly. It says this suggested that a compliant arrangement was possible. The Homeless Administration says it could not justify the existing arrangement given its legal obligations and its responsibility to ensure fairness to workers. It concluded that continuation of the program under the existing terms was untenable. The Homeless Administration says it is disappointed that Cuba chose to withdraw its medical workers from Jamaica when the only requirement for the program to continue was agreement to terms already accepted in other Caribbean states. Despite the breakdown in the arrangement, Jamaica said it remains committed to cooperation with Cuba and reiterated its appreciation for the contribution Cuban medical professionals have made to the country's healthcare system.
Clarendon man charged with multiple offenses after alleged shooting and arson attack. A construction worker from Clarendon has been slapped with multiple charges after he allegedly shot a man in the face and set his vehicle on fire late last year. Rodwayne Richards, 35, otherwise called Rambo, of Narn Castle in James Hill, Clarendon, is now facing serious legal consequences following investigations by the Maypen police. According to police reports, the incident occurred about 5:30 p.m. on December 17, 2025, in the James Hill community. Richards allegedly approached a man who was seated inside his motor car and opened fire, striking the victim in the face. In a brazen escalation of violence, the accused then reportedly set the vehicle ablaze before fleeing the scene, leaving the injured man trapped in the burning car. The victim sustained severe burn injuries in addition to the gunshot wound to his face. He was rescued and rushed to hospital, where he remains receiving treatment for his injuries. Following a thorough investigation, Richards later surrendered himself to police custody. On Friday, March 6, he was formally charged with wounding with intent, malicious destruction of property, using a firearm to commit a felony, unauthorized possession of ammunition, and causing grievous bodily harm with intent. A court date for Richards is now being finalized as the legal process moves forward. Two motorcyclists killed in Clarendon and Westmoreland crashes. Police are investigating two separate motor vehicle collisions that resulted in the deaths of two motorcyclists in Clarendon and Westmoreland over the weekend. The victims have been identified as 48-year-old Marvin Caradis, a resident of Lionel Town in Clarendon, and 22-year-old Maurice Robinson of Fort Williams in Westmoreland. According to police reports, the first tragedy occurred around 10:15 a.m. on Saturday. Caradis was riding his motorcycle along Bustamante Drive in Lionel Town when he collided with a Toyota Probox motor car. The impact left the motorcyclist with severe injuries. He was rushed to the Maypen Hospital, where medical staff battled to save his life. However, Caradis later succumbed to his injuries while receiving treatment. In a separate incident that occurred hours later, young motorcyclist Maurice Robinson lost his life under equally tragic circumstances. Around 5 p.m. on Sunday, Robinson was navigating his motorcycle along the Fort Williams Main Road when he collided with a parked Toyota Coaster motor truck. The force of the impact was devastating, resulting in serious injuries to Robinson and extensive damage to the motorcycle. Bystanders and emergency responders quickly came to Robinson's aid, transporting him to the Savannah Lamar Public General Hospital. Despite medical efforts, he was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The Withorn Police in Westmoreland and the Lionel Town Police in Clarendon have launched investigations into both incidents. Authorities are appealing to anyone with information that could assist in determining the circumstances surrounding these fatal crashes to come forward. These latest fatalities add to the growing concern over road safety, particularly for motorcyclists who remain among the most vulnerable road users. Police continue to urge all motorists to exercise caution, obey traffic laws, and remain vigilant to prevent further loss of life on Jamaica's roads. Vibes Kartel and Mavado set to share stage at Reggae Sumfest 2026. The dancehall world is buzzing with excitement as former rivals Vibes Kartel and Mavado are set to share the stage at this year's Reggae Sumfest. But this is not a clash, rather it's a historic celebration set to light up Plantation Cove in St. Anne on Saturday, July 18. In a groundbreaking moment for Jamaican music, two of the genre's most iconic figures will put decades of rivalry aside to commemorate their shared legacy. This year, the usual week-long Reggae Sumfest is being condensed into a single, high-octane day as the festival adapts in the wake of Hurricane Melissa. The event will relocate to Plantation Cove following extensive damage to the festival's longtime home at Catherine Hall in Montego Bay. Reggae Sumfest organizer and CEO of Down Sound Records, Joe Bogdanovich, addressed reporters to clarify the vision behind this unprecedented booking. According to Bogdanovich, the narrative around this moment isn't about promoting conflict. He said, "What we're recognizing is a defining era in Jamaican music history, as the rivalry between Vibes Kartel and Mavado shaped a generation of dancehall fans. It fueled creativity, produced an incredible catalog of hits, and sparked conversations across the Caribbean and the diaspora." The Sumfest boss underscored that the move to Plantation Cove was necessitated by the severe damage Hurricane Melissa inflicted on Catherine Hall, the festival's traditional venue. Despite the logistical challenges, organizers have pivoted to ensure the show goes on, promising an intimate yet explosive one-night-only experience. For dancehall enthusiasts worldwide, July 18 represents more than just another festival performance. It symbolizes unity, growth, and the recognition of a musical legacy that defined an era.